In this video, we're going to talk about giving your pond that individual pizzazz that makes it your pond. So let's get practical. So there was a guy standing on a street corner with a bee in his hand. What did he see? He saw beauty, because beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Today's topic is about pond pizzazz. In this topic, we're not shooting for practical at all. We're shooting for the moon. We want your pond to be, for you, exciting and beautiful and have pizzazz. That's different for everybody because pizzazz is taste, and taste is individual and personal. But the important thing is that you understand some of the ways that you can add pizzazz to your pond. Let's talk about some. So one aspect of pond pizzazz is moving water, and there's lots of ways you can get that: fountains, waterfalls, etc. I love a waterfall in a pond. I like the sound. I like that it covers traffic noise. I like the appearance. It's beautiful. It aerates the water. It makes the fish excited. A lot of times my fish swim under this bridge and up into the waterfall, and that is one of the things that gives my pond pizzazz. The rock bridge. Everybody's fascinated by a 1,500-pound rock that you can walk over and the fish can swim right underneath you as you walk across the bridge. So another example of moving water that brings aesthetic pizzazz to your pond is a stream. Now, a cascade stream, a thin sheer running over the rocks, is going to actually bring more music and in some ways more attractiveness. But I wanted a swim stream here because I want my fish to come in under the bridge. I'm going to feed them from the deck, and they're going to eat right here, or at least begin to eat right here. Obviously, the fish food is going to travel downstream quickly and out into the pond where it'll continue to be eaten. But this is the place I'm going to focus on feeding my fish, so I wanted my stream to be deep enough for the fish to swim through. And that's my own personal little pizzazz. So in addition to simply making all of the rock work as naturalistic as possible, random, irregular, spontaneous, and erratic, part of that is that I think makes a pond particularly beautiful or stand out is to have some just well-placed boulders, just some big nice boulders. These boulders are heavy and large enough that I can even walk on them, which gives it a little special pizzazz for me. I can come out and stand over where there's a fish cave and watch the fish come and go out of the cave. These rocks beside me are really a turtle island that hides one of the airlift tubes, so it's got some function as well as form. The rest of these rocks are just simply form. They're just beautiful. Just throwing in some random rocks makes it absolutely gorgeous. I also like to change the character and nature of the bottom of the pond. You know, watching fish swim in a big giant open space is great, but watching fish go over areas where it's shallow and areas where it's deep and areas where they go in through the streams and the nooks and crannies, that's really a lot more visually interesting to me. The design for our pond resulted in this awkward little area we didn't quite know what to do with. You can't really easily bring a lawnmower over to mow it and so forth. So we turned this into our Japanese contemplative garden. Typical for a contemplative garden, it's got the Japanese maple and other plants. We couldn't put a lot of plants in this area because of the piping and things that run underneath. So we chose to do a fish family. You know, the stick figures people have on the back of their cars. This represents our family, our children and grandchildren and everything in ceramic fish. Now, obviously, the decorations you include around your pond are going to be personal taste, and the difference between gaudy and glamorous is really in the eye of the beholder. But we particularly chose to use things that we sell on our website and that we can offer to other people if they ask us about them. In addition, of course, is the plants and landscaping. That's a big part of making your pond beautiful. I've got one interesting item over here that we don't sell. Ralph at Little Bear Canoe Company traded me one of our water wheels that we sell for one of his handmade canoes. I thought that was delightful, adding that to the pond. Of course, our hydroponic trough, we've covered it to make it beautiful with cedar. Part of the aesthetics of the pond, all the things that either give you pizzazz or cover up ugly. When we first started selling Amish handcrafted furniture in our Beyond the Pond section on our website, my son gave me a hard time. He said, what does that have to do with ponds? But personally, I think some well-placed furniture certainly makes your pond more enjoyable, even if it doesn't really add pizzazz. Another really important part of pond pizzazz is always the plants. Now, it takes a little while for the plants to grab hold and do well. We've planted those water lilies just within the last couple of days, so it'll take a little while for them to be happy again. and same with the bog plants here, but really an important part of the aesthetics. Now for us, because of the large koi, we're taking a gamble with the lilies. They may or may not survive the fish eating them. Definitely the other plants would not have survived. So we've created into the pond this little bog that separates the bog plants from the fish. Still in the water, still gives that the properties of the plants, taking the nitrates out of the water. It's still good filtration, but the plants are protected in this little bog. And of course, we're going to add a lot more plants on the border. The grass is going to come right up to the edge. Plants in the pond are going to come right up to the edge so that the edge won't be visible at all. And that's part of the pizzazz. But plants themselves are beautiful, soften the effect of harsh objects like rocks and the bridge over here, the wooden bridge. I think the bridge is beautiful, but a large wooden bridge all by itself isn't nearly as beautiful as when you break it up with some good green, healthy plants. When we started this whole project, Diane had an ugly blue pool here, and I didn't want that next to my beautiful pond that I hoped to build. So part of our idea was to have hers and his ponds. Diane swims in this pond, and it's separate from the fish pond by her request. So an important part of the aesthetics was to find a way to make it look like it blended in. This pond isn't visible from the deck. You can't see that it's made out of slightly different, more man-made stone from the house, but we wanted it to blend in and look like it belonged. So deliberately, I made the steps over on this side, even though it would have been just as simple to come into the pond over on my right. But by making the steps over on my left, we required this bridge to get there over the stream. And for us, this is really an important part of our pond Pizzazz, because this bridge hides the fact that these two ponds aren't actually connected. Water goes in under the bridge, water flows out under the bridge. It looks like our two ponds are connected, while her swim pond and my fish pond are completely separate under the bridge. So we have an access port in the bridge so we can access the skimmer for maintenance. The air pump for the airlift system is under here, and as well as the port for the hydroponic trough. Oh, and electric for the lighting. We've engineered a couple of fish caves into this pond. They're not really aesthetically pleasing because we built them that you can't see them on purpose. They more or less hide in the rock. But fish caves are an important part of this understructure for fish health and protection and breeding and that kind of thing. They're a lot of fun too, because variety is neat. Seeing the fish come in and out of the caves is cool. There are lots of other forms of pizzazz you could add to a pond depending on the style of the pond. In a more formal pond, I would have done floating steps instead of a rock bridge. That's a mysterious thing where you can't tell that the rock is being held up by a pedestal. It looks like the rock is floating. That's a lot of fun, a really neat piece of pond pizzazz. We could have added driftwood to the pond, and we probably will as time goes on. You know, we're just finishing this pond right now, so there's lots of more little touches in plants and driftwood and things like that that we'll add to the pond. And then, of course, there's the wildlife in the pond. Most people think about fish right away, and we're going to have a wide variety of fish in our pond. We've already got goldfish and Japanese koi. I'm going to add some golden orf and some game fish to my pond. But even in addition to the fish, there's lots of other creatures that enjoy the pond. The minute we filled this pond with water, birds began to come and enjoy this pond, and we began to enjoy the birds. In addition to birds and fish, we've added 2 turtles to this pond. We are going to add frogs if we need to. Usually frogs will just come on their own. Either eggs will be dropped by flying birds and so forth, or the frogs will simply migrate to the pond. If that doesn't happen, you could add tadpoles to your pond and you'll have frogs forever. And frogs are a neat, fun addition to your pond. I've mentioned birds coming to the pond, and we usually think of that as a good thing as long as we're picturing a bright red cardinal or an incredible bluebird. But there are also some birds that visit your pond that aren't so welcome. Blue herons are one of the #1 problems in ponds nationwide, and of course a hawk can come and fly away with a fish in just a few seconds. So those are problems that you have to work with. Netting the pond, using water sprayers that scare the birds away are some of the ways you can deal with that. Fish caves help with that. But that is a negative wildlife issue that comes up with the pond, is how to keep your prized fish alive from predators. In our next video, we're going to talk about getting your pond ready to start it up, getting ready for wildlife and just generally getting the pond up and running. So I hope you'll join us.